The following game has been rated E for everyone by the ESRB. That means that the content in the game is appropriate for anyone aged 6 and up. And while it does not list any specific restrictions or warnings in regards to this specific game, I do know for a fact that it does involve rockets, explosions, and comedy involving rockets and explosions. That means if you are under the appropriate age for the video game, or you feel that this content is not appropriate for you, then you should not be watching this video. You have been warned. Greetings and salutations. I am Outlier and I bid you welcome to this channel. Joining me today is, of course, my usual co-hosts, Snowball and Wolf. And today we're turning back to the Kerbal Space Program. The premise of Kerbal Space Program is that you run a NASA-like organization for a bunch of literal green men, and technically women, a bunch of little green people. And they like space travel, even though since they have no cities on the surface of their planet known as Kerbin, I'm assuming they're underground dwellers, which means they probably don't really know what space is, but that's essentially the theme of the game. You run a space program for a bunch of people that have absolutely no idea where they're going or even what they're doing. And if you do everything perfectly right, chaos will ensue. That's what I mean when I say chaos will ensue. Because this is what they call a physics-based game, so everything models what it should do in the real world. At least that's my understanding of what physics-based gameplay means. So that means if you fire a rocket upwards, it will go upwards. And the game is modeled aerodynamics down to realistic measures, which means that if you only have one airfoil on one side, it changes how the air flows around the rocket, which will pull it off in one direction. So long as you're still flying where there's air thick enough to actually cause that sort of effect. But given the fact you're launching from the planet, if you don't have your aerodynamics down perfectly, things will go crazy relatively quickly. And that's just getting up. There's also getting back down, which is also has its own little hurdles and interesting tidbits. I've played this game quite a bit, both, well, not really on camera, but I think this is like the 4th episode, but I have played quite a bit off camera, and I do enjoy this game, and it's through this game that I learned that modern space travel is essentially falling. You know, it's all gravity-assistant movement, and if you want to travel anywhere to, say, the real-life moon or Mars or anything, you launch a payload up into orbit, and as it's flying around the surface of the Earth in a stable orbit, you fire off a thruster to essentially have its orbit extend to wherever you want it to go, and then essentially you just keep falling and falling and falling until you're caught in some other gravity well, in which case you do a braking burn to change your orbital path to whatever you want to orbit now, and slash or decelerate enough where you actually land due to the pull of gravity. In fact, even NASA and their returning things to Earth don't actually use, as far as my understanding goes, thrusters to slow the spacecraft down to a survivable landing speed. No, they basically throw their spacecraft into the atmosphere and use the atmosphere as a kind of air brake, which is why things glow red as they re-enter, because they're essentially, at least in terms of Kerbal Space Program, because I don't know exactly what speeds NASA hits, they're hitting Atmo at hopefully less than 2 kilometers a second, because in my experience, anything hitting Kerbal atmosphere at over 2 kilometers a second is usually in for a not nice trip. But that's just basically some of the craziness in real life and in this game that can ensue. I would say, for those who haven't seen last episode, but to be fair, it's been a while since I played this game, as I mentioned before, and I don't actually remember what I was doing last episode. I did look at the title and it did involve tourism, so I'm assuming I was getting tourists up into low carbon orbit-ish type trajectory, and then having them go back down. I'm fairly certain I haven't actually managed to maintain a stable orbit yet, so I'm assuming that's what we're going to be doing this episode. And by doing, I mean trying, because I don't remember exactly the craft that I used, because I originally played this on the Xbox and this is on PC. Which means, as far as I know, my spacecraft designs don't transfer from console to console, which means I have to rebuild everything from scratch, and it's been so long since I played on the Xbox, I don't even remember what parts I used to build what I had. So it should be interesting. And on that note, this game is of course made by Thank you again. And that being said, let us begin. Okay, so this is the Kerbal Space Center, or KSC as it's called. No, that's KFC. This is KSC. Although now that I think about it, I can see where some people might get confused by that. But anyway, I almost called it the KFC. The KSC. My co-hosts are tripping me up again. Is this place, and it has a variety of different facilities for a variety of different purposes. The vehicle assembly bay is our primary building. It's what we use to build our spacecraft, which then move to the launch pad, where I then fling them into space, if I build them correctly. The tracking station allows me to see where everything is and where it's going. At least once I upgrade it, I think it can tell me where it's going. The space plane hangar is basically the same thing as the vehicle assembly bay, but for aircraft, mostly atmospheric aircraft, and instead of the launch pad, if I ever figure out how to work it correctly, they move to the runway, where they take off that way. Mission controls, where I pick up missions, so that way I know exactly what I'm doing while up in space. The astronaut complex is where my Kerbal space people live and operate out of when they're not on missions that I'm not trying to get them killed at, but I make no guarantees. Research and development is because I have it set to, I forget what mode I have it set to. I think it's career, but don't hold me to that. I need to, if I want new shiny parts, I have to research them, and in order to research them, I need science, and science is gotten through performing experiments up in orbit in and around Carbon and various other places. But I accrue science, I then spend the science for new parts. New parts gets me new things allows me to do more things, which in theory nets me more science that allows me to unlock further things. That's generally how it goes. And then there's also the administration building, where everything not directly related to flinging little green people up into the sky is situated there. So it's basically where everybody goes for paperwork, insurance claims, blueprint, well, not really blueprints, but, you know, government funding. It's just basically where all the people not involved with going up into the sky and tracking where the people who go up into the sky actually are, that's where they work. So anyway, first thing we need is a mission, which I do not actually have any currently available. So I currently have, I can do focused atmospheric surveys of Kerbin, but they require that I have a specific craft, pressure reading in a flight above 18,500 meters near Corinne's miscalculation, and that's going to be a semi-randomly generated spot on the surface of Kerbin that I need to fly to, and while maintaining an altitude above 18,500 meters, I need to take a pressure reading. And if I can do all that, I get 13,912 coin, which I then use to buy new parts to build new rockets, as well as 2 fame, I believe that is, which affects how people view the program. And while I can do any of these missions, unfortunately, if I look at the tracking station, which should tell me where these places are, yeah, so Kerbin's miscalculation is actually up here, and by just for reference, Kerbal Space Center is here. So in order to complete the objective required for here, I need to basically launch a spacecraft, get it to here, and while it's still above 18,500 meters in this general location, I need to take a pressure reading. Now, unfortunately, what I have is designed not for atmospheric flight, but for, low orbital flight, I believe is the official term. And for these pressure readings and temperature readings and whatnot, I need an actual aeroplane aircraft, which, again, is built at the spaceplane hangar, although I don't technically need to build it there. But it requires various parts and engines and all that fun stuff that I just don't have access to. Most of the introductory aircraft parts are found in aviation, which I don't have unlocked because I need 45 science to unlock it, and I only have 43.7. So as much as I enjoy these long-winded and very slow-moving missions, because I basically have to fly a plane very slowly to these places, I can't actually do them because, again, I don't have the parts to build the correct aircraft. What I can do, however, is ferry a VIP from one place to another. So I can basically take this VIP, Natia Kerbin. Apparently everybody has the last name of Kerbin. I don't know if that's just a species thing, a Kerbin thing, or literally everybody who comes and works and operates out of the KSC or comes to visit is all from the same extended family. But anyway, she wants a charter tour to see the sights right here on Kerbin, keep her alive, and show her a good time. And her itinerary is a suborbital space flight in Kerbin. So basically, I have to stick her in a spacecraft, add in a pilot to actually fly the thing, get it above the atmosphere, and make certain it gets back down without exploding. So this is well within my capabilities, and this is pretty much how I make all of my coin right now. So I'll take this mission. Then I also have various other missions where I have to test various parts doing various things. So for instance, the Juno basic jet engine, which is from the aircraft section, I need to test this while in Kerbin, while in flying between an altitude of 3,000 meters and 9,000 meters, and at a speed of 60 meters per second, well, between 60 meters per second and 240 meters per second. So I basically have to hit the test button, which I think is activated for this particular type of thing, while it's within this altitude range and this speed range. And while I could technically do that, even if I don't have the parts unlocked, they give me prototype parts to play with. It's difficult to do on something not that isn't designed for aircraft usage. I mean, if this was like, say, a decoupler, it'd be easier because I mean, I can do that with liquid thrust. Let's see if I can pull that one off. And then this one, I have haul a TD-25 decoupler into escape trajectory out of Kerbal. So this is going to be more difficult because I have to be on an escape trajectory away from Kerbal when I activate this through staging, which is how I activate various parts. And an escape trajectory is basically leaving Kerbal's orbit, and not just Kerbal's orbit, I mean like leaving Kerbal directly. So I have to be traveling fast enough to essentially get out of the planet's gravitational well, which is kind of impossible with what little parts I do have. Do also have test a heat shield between 3,600, 36,000 to 47,000 meters at a speed of 1.97 kilometers per second to 2.3 kilometers per second. So mid to low, well, mid atmospheric range, traveling at ridiculously fast speeds. I'm not certain how I'm going to pull that one off, but that's also possible. And I can also test this Hammer solid fuel rocket while orbiting Kerbal, and I need to be orbiting Kerbal at an altitude of 500,000 meters to 510,000 meters, and I guess I have to activate it off while I'm in a stable orbit, which I haven't been able to do normally. And then there's also test the TD-18 decoupler on escape trajectory, which is basically the same as this one. And then there's also a contract from the Kerbal World's First Record-Keeping Society, where I have to maintain a stable, well, gain and maintain a stable orbit. So those I can do, and those are my active quests. So it's probably unwise to have to ferry the VIP and test the basic jet engine at the same time. And I mean, I have quite a lot of time to actually do these, but I mean, I'll technically make more money completing the engine test than I would ferrying the VIP, but it's a VIP, and if memory serves, very important snippy people don't like to be waiting. So first thing we do, because I don't actually have any aircraft, I currently don't have any saved vehicles, so I have to build one. So first thing we do is get the cockpit down, and I have options between a command pod or the Onion re-entry module, which isn't a command pod, so we're going with the command pod. And after that, it's basically add something for right, I was going to say add passenger seats, but then I remembered the basic passenger seats come with the aeronautic, with the okay, that's weird. Oh, there we go. I was going to say with the airplane pieces. I couldn't remember what I was going to say. So these things are going to need parachutes. Aerodynamics. One of these days I'm going to remember where everything is. That's some sciencey stuff. Engines, control, robotics, payload, thermal, electrical, communications, science, cargo, and utility. Here we are. Would have found it eventually. Sit one. Come on. One parachute on top. And because there's two of these things, let me also stick on a pair of radial chutes, just so that way, because it's twice as large, it's twice as heavy as a normal one. And to help slow things down, you know what? Let's stick the radial chutes on the lower pod, and that way I can have the drogue chutes on the upper one. Right, and the drogue chutes are designed to slow the spacecraft down to a speed that the normal chutes can operate at. So this is what I mean by staging. So all your parts activate on what's known as stages. And right now I only have 2 stages. The first stage that fires are going to be the drogue chutes, which slow everything down to the point where these parachutes can operate at which point the next stage is these parachutes operating at. And they should be fine by themselves. But where are my... Here we are, decouplers. I'm going to stick a D12 decoupler on the very bottom of this. I don't think where it's just these two pods, they'll flip over. They're aerodynamic enough where during re-entry they'll flip over and go pointy end first. But if they do, let me just pop off this parachute real quick. Thermal. Wrong heat shield. There we go. Stick you on top, and I believe I can actually have a parachute directly underneath that, so... I mean, that works. This guy, whoever's in the primary cockpit won't be able to get out because of the heat shield. I know I've tested that, but that does technically work still, if memory serves. Right, and then we need fuel. Lots and lots of fuel, because they are going up, and they are going up very high, and then they are coming back down. 4 should work, hopefully, maybe, probably not. And then I need a liquid fuel engine to use the fuel, and I need it to be aerodynamic, so I need aerodynamicness. Let's go with the winglets. Let's make it 4 winglets. Stick these up here, and then I need to... Do I have radial decouplers? I do have radial decouplers. Let's make 2 radial decouplers right here. Line it up with this fin, because I'm going to have 2 solid fuel boosters on the decouplers. Each one of those yeah, okay, hang on. Let me just pop this off right here. Set it to singleton mirroring, so that way I can only work at one. One little trick that I found out, that if you want to have something complex be mirrored, what you want to do is actually just build one of it. Okay, I'm trying to get it so that way it lines up with this wing, but I don't think that's going to happen. Of course, what I probably should do is have the wing line up with the parachute, which I don't think it's doing. I think the reason why it's not lining up with the other wing is because of the decoupler, which is no longer attaching to the vessel. Alright, so that should be good enough. Just get rid of you. Stick you here, thusly. Maybe bring it down a little, which is my main mistake. That way I can put an aerodynamic nose cone here. You know what, let's actually... I want to mirror. That's not it. Where is... Alright, it's been a while since I've played this. I know I can put it in mirror mode. Oh, there we are. Symmetry mirror. Rather than messing with the fin out this way. I was kind of hoping for would it be... Okay, why aren't you connecting to the decoupler anymore? Like I want to connect inside the thingy. that's not going to work. You go away, and I guess I just start this from the very beginning. Of course, now that I think about it, what I can do is, this is now technically no longer connected to the the vessel. Stick this back here. Put this here. Enable mirroring, and it should get me, yeah. So I can do it this way. Then, if I deactivate, switch it back to radial, what I can do, I think it gets me that. Yeah, so as I was saying before, or at least I don't think I actually said anything, but for this sort of, when you want to make something complex that's radially symmetry on the spacecraft, what I want to do is just basically build one, and then when you're finished building all of it, you set it to radial symmetry, and then just set up however you want. In fact, let me actually put it to 4. Because added chaos says why not. Yeah, that should work. And I'll have the 4 solid fuel boosters fire off at the very beginning, which should hopefully get this thing up to speed fast enough that once the solid fuel thrusters run out of solid fuel, which will happen relatively quickly, they get jettisoned, and then the liquid fuel engine takes over, and at which point that should have enough fuel to get me where I want to go and how I want to get there. At which point, and this is the staging got messed up, at which point, on the way back down, once the tanks are out of fuel, I then use this radial decoupler to jettison all these tanks. Then the crew pods re-enter orbit. Well, not re-enter orbit, they re-enter the atmosphere. And once they get low enough and slow enough, the 2 drogue chutes fire, hopefully slowing it down fast enough that the radial and dorsal mounted, well, the nose parachute, I should say, deploy safely, allowing the command pods to travel at a slow enough speed that they don't impact the ground in a manner that kills everybody. So it's automatically defaults to Jebediah Kerbin, our, I guess, default main primary pilot, and the tourist is Nadia Natiania Kerbin. I have no idea how to pronounce that, but yeah, she's the VIP. So I basically just got to get her up and, you know, outside the atmosphere and back down. That's all I got to do. So I think if I save this, actually no, I should put in a name. I'll call it the orbital test, and we'll save it. So if I hit open, you have the orbital test right here. Accidentally saved it twice, so just get rid of that one. And so that way I have this little crazy beauty saved for, so that way if I ever need it again, I just basically come in here, open up the file, and it should populate automatically. But let's see if this thing works, or if it just explodes on the launching pad. So we hit launch. Right, on the plus side, it hasn't fallen over yet, so that's always something good. And I believe, no, that's brake. That's the gear, which it doesn't have. Okay, so that's down pitch, up pitch. You're on one side, you're on the other side. Roll left, roll right. That's the camera. That's the cockpit view. Okay, that's thrust maximum, thrust 0.
Ah, there we are. So I can fly this thing manually, or I can have a Jebediah Kerman do it, which is what SAS stands for, Stable Assisting Flight. I forget what the acronym is, but as I always say when I start everything, SAS on, and then stage 5 begins. So up we go. This is the fuel to denote how much fuel is left in the thrusters, which, once emptied, they no longer work. And if you can see right here, the aerodynamics is such that it's receiving a large amount of roll, which is causing it to spin. But because the SAS is active, Jebediah is trying to counteract it. And now that the thrusters are out, they get jettisoned. Oop. Toggle throttle maximum, and then fire off the liquid fuel thruster. And if I hit the map and go to where I'm going, so it used to tell me what the okay, let's actually stop real quick. It used to tell me what the apogee of the arc was, so I could tell exactly how high it's going to go. I mean, we're getting there. We're still technically pointed directly up, so even if I hit this apogee marker and it's not, well, the height of the curve, and it's not high enough, I can still always give it more thrust and get there. But we actually achieved leaving, wrong button, actually achieved leaving orbit, well, atmosphere, because atmosphere is at 70,000 meters. And we are now in space for all intents and purposes. So I got all these little markings on the nav ball, which is what this thing is. It tells me direction, whether or not I'm pointed away or towards the planet in question, which in this case is Carbon. So this little marker right here is the prograde, I believe it's called, according to this game. So if I fire this here, this is the direction of travel that I'm heading in. So if I aim and point towards this, I will basically be keep heading in this direction. As you can see, this orbital line path is increasing because this is dependent upon direction I'm heading and how fast I'm traveling. So if I kept it going when I run out of fuel, this arc probably would have stretched out to probably about here. By contrast, if and I can just do this on the map directly, look for what's known as retrograde, which is this marker right here. They're color-coded to be opposite, so I know this is retrograde, which is means I'm now pointing away from the direction I'm actually traveling in. So if I fire off this way, I'm actually slowing down. So as you can see, I'm slowing down, and this arc is getting slower and smaller and smaller, to the point where if I eventually burn up all the gas, no, it's essentially straight up and then straight back down. And I should actually be... Yeah, I am decreasing, although I hit an altitude of 91,000 meters, so... Again, wrong button. But what I can now do is, because this is out of fuel and basically dead weight, just jettison it, and I should be fine. So if I keep pointing towards retrograde, that means that as they get closer and closer to the atmosphere, they should be pointing away from retrograde, and the built-in heat shield of the command capsule should be facing downwards. So eventually, the command console, the command pods, I should say, facing the right way once they hit re-entry and won't burn up and explode, killing the passengers. And this little piece of junk is just going to fly off in its own little trajectory, Basically what it was doing. It will eventually, because it's not on an orbital track, just simply impact Kerbin. I'm assuming middle of the ocean over this way. I wonder, can I... Where is crew report? I have to be on the cabin to do that. Where is the cabin? Oh, there we are. Crew hatch. Oh, here it is, crew report. You can actually take a crew report from various places in and around Kerbin and space. Just get small amounts of science. So if I take this crew report right now, it's crew assessment situation from the upper atmosphere. It's worth 4.5 science. So if I keep this experiment, and I manage to get these guys home safely, they can. Oh, look, there's the junk right there. They can technically turn in the report, and I will gain extra science because of it. Don't think... Yeah. Yeah, she's a VIP, so it doesn't matter. But we're now hitting re-entry, which is why everything was red, and we were slightly off target, actually. And now we're slow. Now we're traveling slow enough that I can deploy the drogue chutes, which slows us down even further. So that way we're no longer having visible air whoosh past the command pods. And they'll fully open at around, I forget exactly when, but wherever the game, whatever I have it set to default to, I forget exactly how high. I think it's like 2,500 meters is the default. I can set it for higher. Yeah, see, it's about 2,500 meters. And that slows the command pods down enough that while they're still traveling at 32 meters a second, and if they hit the water, they'll probably explode at this rate, at this speed. But it's slow enough that I can deploy the main chutes, which slows it down slightly even further. But they won't actually fully deploy until about 1 kilometer above the surface. Now it's currently set to sea level, whereas I can set it to above ground level, but they're flying over the water, so it's going to be the same number. But now that's less than 1 kilometer away, the main chutes deploy, and they drop from 30 meters a second to about 5. So if I just increase the warp quickly enough, because I don't feel like sitting here for 10 minutes while they slowly land. I mean, I keep thinking that they're close, but then I have to remember they're still 1 kilometer above the surface. So they're still rather far away. And even though it doesn't look like it, they're still 200 meters above the surface of the water. Even though it looks like they're still relatively close. Now 50 meters away, so let's put it back down to time warp of 1. And they make a splashdown, I believe it's called, right here. And technically the lower command pod is submerged, but the game doesn't really care about that. So that's success. So we hit recover vessel. And we have a crew report from Kerbin's upper atmosphere, which gets us 4.5 science. And recovery of a vessel after suborbital flight, which gets me 0 science. And now I have access. And now I have a total science of 48.2. So always fun. On that note, if I hit next, it gets me all these parts, which I don't actually get to keep the parts. They all get salvaged and scrapped and resold. Every time I build a new spacecraft, I have to buy everything anew. Not quite certain why, but that's how the game is designed. And any extra supplies like monopropellant, fuel, the ablative coating on the heat shield, all that fun stuff, gets refunded. And since I'm relatively close to the KSC still, everything retains almost full value. The farther I get from KSC, the more the percentage decreases. And then for crew, because Jebediah Kerbin has been on suborbital flights over and over and over again, he doesn't actually get any extra XP. Whereas Nadia Kerman, because this is her first flight to begin with, gets 1 XP, but because she's a VIP, it doesn't matter. And since she attained her flight itinerary, I forgot what it was called, she should no longer be available for selection on the pilot screen. So if I go back to crew, she's no longer there. Also, the contract is no longer listed there. And yeah, contract complete. That's actually to test the hammer. So yeah. Anyway, then I can go back to do get another job or mission. I can, like, for now, this one's new. I can test the Mark 16 parachute in flight over Kerbin, and I need to be traveling at a speed. In order to perform this, I need to activate the part through staging, I believe. You have to perform the test, activate the part through staging sequence when all test conditions are met, and I need to be between an altitude of 3,000 and 10,000 meters, as well as traveling at a speed between 30 meters a second and 230 meters a second. So, the Mark 16 parachute, I believe, is the nose cone parachute that I've been using. So, this should technically be feasible. Let's actually get this right now. And as I said, I have 48 science, and as I stated before, to get the next tier of anything, I need 45 science. So I can now get one of these options. So I can get the basic science, which nets me radiator panels and extra piece of science equipment, which I can use to get more science. Radiator panels, high gain antennas. So what the antenna can do is, rather than waiting for my crew and vessel to return safely to Kerbin to turn in their science report, what it can do is have a high gain antenna or some sort of transmission device strapped to the outside of the vessel, and I can transmit the science data back that way, but I do get a penalty to the science. So unless it's like something on the Mun, which is one of the 2 moons of Kerbin, that I can't get back, but I still want at least some of the science back, I can transmit the report that way. Also, I should point out that science equipment only nets you a certain amount of science over and over again. And the more you perform an experiment in the same area, the less and less science points you actually get. So I have also flight controls, which gets me another re-entry module, reaction wheels, which help steer the vessel, and better aerodynamic flight wings. And basic science also gets me an autonomous pilot for all intents and purposes. It's basically a machine AI that can get me basic flight controls. So if I wanted to fly a spacecraft that didn't have a pilot, because I didn't expect it back because it's a scientific run towards the sun, or it's like a probe to the moon that I don't ever intend on having it get back to Kerbin, and I don't feel like killing an astronaut to do so, I can put this thing on and it still allows me to fly the vessel. And then rechargeable battery pack basically gives me electrical power to power any devices. A lot of the equipment that I put on the spacecraft requires an electrical charge. The battery pack will allow me to store said electrical charge to use the various parts and equipment on the spacecraft without having the engine running, because the engine does generate an electric power which powers everything, and I think the command pod has a small battery, but this gets me extra battery power. And then there's also the Science Junior, which is an extra science equipment to generate more science. Experimental storage unit, which I think allows me to store various pieces of equipment inside. Yeah, so it helps protect, I just read the description, and the experimental storage unit basically helps protect other science equipment, like the goo pods, I think it is. They're around here somewhere. Like the too hot thermometer, I don't think I actually have a barometer right now. And no, there's the press map barometer, as well as the external goo pods, which I don't actually remember where exactly I picked them up. Oh, there it is. It's the default piece of science equipment. But anything I strap to the outside of the spacecraft, like the goo pods, the barometer and thermostats, and extra workbenches, all that stuff can be affected by re-entry, things like re-entry temperatures, or smacking into things, or getting hit by stuff that gets jettisoned from the spacecraft. And if they take damage, they run the risk of exploding. So the experimental storage unit allows me to shove those delicate pieces of equipment in there and helps to keep them safe. By contrast, there's also aviation, which gives me the parts to build basic aircraft, general construction, which actually gets me the crew cabin, so this piece of passenger equipment's not actually with the aircraft. I thought it was, my apologies. But rather than having multiple command pods, if I had the crew cabin, I could actually stick that onto the end of the command pod, and I think it allows me to fit 2 people. So if I had 2 VIPs in this piece of equipment, I could stick it to the bottom of the command pod instead of having 3 command pods. I have better decouplers, structural fuselage parts, engine plates, which I think is actually relatively new. Better decouplers, adapters, and if I'm worried that my spacecraft will fall over, I can get this thingy, which helps stabilize it. And I also can access better engines, so I can get side-mounted liquid fuel engines. I would say better liquid fuel engine, but the Terrier actually doesn't produce better thrust, but I like it. Yeah, I think it's the one that I like for just the actual core spacecraft, because it doesn't produce all that much thrust, but it also doesn't use all that much fuel. So while it takes forever to stop, it also has plenty of gas to do so. And I like having this as the main spacecraft engine, so once it's in space where it doesn't have to worry about atmospheric drag and whatnot, I don't quickly burn through all the gas that I have or have to carry more gas. It also gets me a bigger fuel tank, and I don't even know what these things are. Oh, these are new firework containers, which came with the most recent update. It's been a while since I played, so I have absolutely no idea when the most recent update launched, but the most recent update's the last update, if memory serves, so it's just something new that got added there. I can basically launch fireworks from my spacecraft now, just for fun. And also extra and different fuel tanks. So as much as I want aviation to build aircraft to perform the atmospheric tests, part of me thinks it's probably better if I go with basic science, just so that way I can get the Science Junior, which would allow me to perform more scientific experiments and get more science that way. So if I hit this, and the tech tree is also branching, so now that I have basic science unlocked, I can then, if I have 90 research next, I can get basic electronics, which gets me spotlights, better batteries, which can be stacked as opposed to radially mounted, a better AI control AI controller, more flood lamps, solar panels, so that way rather than just running off of internal battery power and the thruster engines, and I can have the spacecraft once they're outside the atmosphere point at the sun and charge the batteries that way. And also have miniaturization, which gets me apparently a scientific kit for EVA experiments, which I think is rather new. Extra adapters and a docking port so I can actually connect things. Don't even know what this is, and I'll probably look at it later because I don't feel like looking at it now. And then space exploration, which gives me extra storage, EVA repair kits, more storage, a larger passenger cabin, railings to climb up and around, also rover parts. So yeah, I now have 3.2 science and still can't build aircraft. But what I can do is, since I don't need this part right now, I do need the decoupler, I can get rid of this, and if I get science, where is science? I now have access to the Science Junior, so I can stick this on, and that would serve as a means of getting more science. And then I can... Well, that's actually smaller than I thought it would be. If I put, say, 2 of these here, do these open? Oop, wrong one. These storage units are new, so I'm not quite exactly certain how they work. I don't think it can stick anything in them. It looks like you can put stuff on top of, stick it underneath or put stuff on top of it, but... I mean, it's not like I think a standard store... Do we even have access to standard storage bays? Yeah, the service bay. If I stick the service bay here, yeah, I can open up the service bay like this. You know, I can stick the goo in here. I can also put extra batteries in there if I want, but I have access to extra batteries right now. So... yeah, I have no idea how these bays work. I mean, it's not like I can put... I'm fairly certain if I stick a thermometer and barometer on the outside, I don't think it keeps them nice, safe, and happy. I'm fairly certain they still burn up on the upon re-entry. But if I stick the decoupler onto the bottom of this, and stick the rest of the craft onto the bottom of that, we should technically be good to go. Although, I do have one contract that says, test the basic engine. And if I go to engines... right, oh, there it is, the Juno basic engine. I mean, I can actually stick them underneath here. So in theory, what I can do, because these require fuel engines that I just don't have, what I can do is launch this craft, get it to where it needs to go, between 3,000 and 9,000 meters, and I just realized the Juno basic engine and the parachute have practically the same altitude and speed requirements. The Mark 16's yeah, the Mark 16 is the nose parachute. So theoretically, if I really wanted to, be all crazy like, stick these up here, and you have the drogue chute, so that way they don't deploy and slow down the craft prematurely. I can basically, hopefully, it should, I think, work. Now hit both of these contracts at the same time if I can get it up where I need it to go. So let's call this the orbital test B. Save that, because the orbital test 1 is a slightly different configuration. So let's launch this and see what happens. Worst case, it falls over and explodes. Alright. Oh yeah, as I say, what turns on the SAS? What I should have done is actually... hang on. I mean, I can just simply do this and just watch everything explode. I mean, to be fair, Jebediah is still alive, so... yeah. Let's revert flight. Revert to vehicle assembly. One thing that I forgot to do is I actually have 2 pilots, and I like rotating them around. So rather than have Jebediah take this mission, I'll have Valentina do it. Instead, I'll have Valentina do it. So let's launch this again. Alright, once again, SAS on. Away we go. Now, what I probably should have done was gotten rid of these, I would say gotten rid of the solid fuel thrusters, but I still need to get between 3,000 and 9,000, which I'm technically at. So they go away. I jettison these. Activate the liquid fuel thruster. And I turn it on. So this should technically help fly the aircraft because we're now moving, but yeah, I have absolutely no control over this thing while it's without the thruster on. But in the meantime, what I can do is conduct a materials survey, which nets me 17.5 science. So I can test that while flying over Kerbin. Oh, so that's what it does. It keeps the report, not the piece of equipment. So if I fire this off as a type of braking burn, I should be, yeah, between everything. So if I jettison this and hit off all the parachutes, everything's upside down. But I tested both, and I should be successful. So if I open this, just because, and get access to the goo, and observe mystery goo while flying, and I get an extra 7 points there. And I can also test the barometer, log pressure data while flying over Kerbin, and test temperature while flying over Kerbin. And I can collect all the data. So all of that is now stored in here, so everything's now open. So we're actually slowly traveling, probably faster than I would have liked. Nope, wrong button. I know there's a hotkey for the warp, but I don't remember what it is. Of course, then the main chutes deploy, and we slow down even more to hopefully a survivable speed. As the remaining pieces of the spacecraft hit the ground and explode. Go back to 1. Set it to AGL just to see exactly how high we are. Okay, something exploded, and I don't remember what it was. It looks like... Get rid of the nav ball real quick. It looks like the goo containers exploded, so I don't have access to those. And I did have a second one, which I could have used, but what I can do is record the pressure temperature at the grasslands as well as the log temperature. My plan was originally to, once I hit the ground, I don't have access to landing gear yet. I was hoping to travel slow enough that it wouldn't explode. Of course, I guess if I closed the bay, I probably would have kept the goo alive, but then again, it probably would have exploded anyway, but then use the second mystery goo once we were on the ground. But all that's done, and I can collect all of these. So there's now 6 reports stored, and I can recover the vessel. So I get access to, yes, temperature scan from the Kerbin's grasslands, and that's me 2.4 science. Atmospheric pressure data from grasslands, and that's me 3.6 science. Material study while flying in Kerbin, that's me 17.5. Mystery goo observation while flying, that's me 7. temperature scan while flying nets me 5.6. Pressure scan while flying nets me 8.4. Recovery of the vessel nets me none, but I net a total of 44.5 science. So if a second mystery goose survived and I still got science from that, I could very easily, just on this one trip, gotten me enough science to unlock another tier. But as it stands, I have 52.7 science to play with. Now, as for parts, I'm still relatively close to the KSC, so they mostly retain their value, except for the parts that are jettisoned and then exploded, so they are worthless. And then the crew, Valentina, because again, this is not her first flight, gains no extra experience. But all of those contracts are done, so my options are to either go and get new contracts. And I can test this radial mount here at this altitude range and this speed, as well as various other things. Or else what I can do is, if I go back to R&D, unlock aviation, because I now have the research points to do so. What do I want? General construction. Now I want aircraft, so let's go with aviation next, which gets me all the little aircraft parts, which means I can now build aircraft. So these conduct focused atmospheric surveys I can now technically do because I now technically have the ability to build aircraft to do so. So if I were to say flag these, I should now technically be able to build an aircraft capable of doing so. Well, I should point out that the space plane hangar is different from the vehicle assembly bay. It upgrades differently, so you know, I have a certain limit to the number of parts that I can use. So, for instance, because I've never upgraded the space plane hangar, I can only build a space plane using 30 parts, and it has to weigh less than 18 tons. Also, it can't be higher than 20 meters, have a width of greater than 15 meters, or a length greater than 15 meters. Now, if I were to upgrade the spaceplane hangar, I can actually get something that's, well, more than that. Fuselage. Where are... Okay. As it says, like, where's the fuel tanks for the space plane, for the aircraft? So now in space, I need liquid fuel and an oxidizer, which is basically O2, I think, which causes which is a reaction mass for the fuel, allowing it to burn and produce thrust. Because these planes aren't traveling above the atmosphere, they can just use general, well, the atmosphere, truth be told. So they just need to carry liquid fuel. So if I stick thusly, and a third one, come on, thusly, and then two small ones. And for the space planes, it actually defaults to mirrored symmetry. So if I stick that there, can do is for engines, get the basic engine here, third basic engine here. Then I want intake. Where are a small circular intake? The jet engines, however, do require air to travel in, so the air intakes should give it oxygen to actually use. And then, because in order to fly you need wings, you need to give it wings. So you need to make certain that they are level, which is difficult to do. If I aim it, those are more swept down. Those are more swept up. It's like I can't actually get it level to where I want. I want it even. So Otherwise, the aerodynamics will be bad. Come on. I mean, I guess that's gonna have to work. Do I have... I should. Ground landing gear. So if I stick this... Come on. There, in fact... There we go. Now they're level. Seriously, how hard is it to... Yeah, now they're upside down. Well, they're not upside down, but now they're too high, which means I'm going to have to put this one up here. I think I should be good. I do need a tail fin, I just realized. Yeah, the tail fin. I said tail fin. Stick that there. Probably should also get 2 more for rudder control. Of course, the extra engines are in the way. But I guess I could put them there. Yeah, this is like a passable aircraft. These fast drilling is guaranteed to operate while attached to the craft. However, like a repeat function, no refunds. Should probably put in flaps, but the swept wing, I think it actually has built-in flaps. Plus, because it's again a swept wing, I can't actually put anything on. I think if I was like doing a build-a-wing type thing, like if I was doing, you know, this is where the flaps will be used. Right there, but wrong kind of wing. So Jebediah is now our pilot for this one because Valentina took the last job, and let's call this plane test A. Save that. Alright, so then we launch. Well, if I look here, it's got 21 parts. It's under the tonnage as well as the height, width, and length requirements. So we should be good to launch. And I can actually choose where I want to launch it from. Did not realize that. Something new with one of the prior updates. But if I launch it here, I just realized I did not check staging. Of course, I also didn't put in parachutes, so it's not going to be able to land easily. Well, not without the airport. But if I hit SAS on once again, kick the throttle to maximum, and fire off the engines. I try to take it off, and it's so low to the ground that the tail hits the runway and explodes. Alright, brake. I mean, I have to be honest. I really, really have to be honest. That actually went better than I thought it would. Whenever I took an aircraft down the runway, regardless of how I designed it or what parts I used, it would always try to veer off to the right, fly off the runway, and then explode. Rather more violently than what you just saw. So let's revert flight. Go back to the spaceplane hangar. Set mirrored things facing and put these wheels a little bit further back, like back, like tail end, like the very back of the plane. So let's save that. Maybe I do need these things, because of course the problem is they don't actually mesh with the swept wing design. We'll see how this goes. You can also get a tail connector. Anyway, so let's try launching this. And I just realized, let's revert flight once again. Put a bunch of radial mount chutes at the very top of this thing, because, like I said, in the past, all my aircraft have exploded trying to take off, and it didn't usually end well, and I've never managed to actually re-land anything on the runway. So what I would normally do is, for these aircraft, basically kill thrust and then use parachutes to basically do a vertical landing. Let's try it this time. Okay, SAS on, thrusts to maximum, and fire. See how this goes. Now I have absolutely no idea what takeoff speed actually would be for something this of this design. But in the past, it would have rolled off the runway before now, so I'm assuming we're still good. Now, if I pull up, still not enough lift to get off. At the end of the runway. But we managed takeoff. Cool. Alright, and basically turn it around. Yaw. Let's roll. I mean, I can turn it in a straight line. I should probably be getting more altitude than 300 meters AGL or ASL. Of course, now I'm not traveling straight upwards. I'm leaving Dofkin's Pride. What do I need to... Right, can't pause and look at the thing. Caravan. Flight below 18,000 meters near Dofkin's Pride. Where is Dofkin's Pride? Apparently close because I'm leaving it. Oh, Dofkin Pride is like right behind me now. So if I roll this way and then pull, I'm actually heading down. Pull up. As you can watch prograde, as I said, that's where the direction where the aircraft is basically traveling. And much like modern fixed-wing aircraft, you need to be at a certain speed in order to generate enough lift to actually, well, fly. So what normally happens is that roll slightly sideways and then turn. And then I just also realized I don't have any science equipment on this thing. So even though I'm at Dawkins Pride, I actually need to take a crew report, I think. Yeah, I just needed a crew report for Dawkins Pride, and I'm actually traveling down. And what do I need for... Yeah, because I don't actually have temperature or pressure equipment on these surveys. This is actually the only one that I can do. So I forgot to put on thermostats, and now I'm rolling the aircraft. Now it's upside down, and now it's upside down again, and now it's going down, so... Come on. Stop. Stop fighting me. So since that's the only one that I can do, let's actually attempt, and I use that word theoretically, to get back to the KSC. KSC is over here. Right, and for thrust, it's basically... Yeah, I can't click anywhere and change it that way. But for thrust, it's basically max thrust or nothing. No, actually, shift and control do it by increments. So now, unfortunately, unlike all my other flight and pilot games, I don't actually have HUD telemetry to tell me whether or not I'm aligned with the runway. So down to 3/4 thrust. Tell you what I'm not aligned with the runway. Go thrust a little bit more. Push up, turn, turn, turn. We missed it. Miss it again. Turn up a little bit more. Pick up thrust, and we explode. Oops. What I should have done was I should have used the parachutes. Anyway, revert to the spaceplane hangar. And I need science equipment. I need thermostats. I need 2 thermostats. Because they're small, I'll stick them right here. 2 more thermostats go directly behind them. Then I also need atmospheric pressure readings, 3 pressure readings, 6 pressure readings, 7 pressure readings. And I'll go with 4 barometers as well. You know, I'll go with 6 because I can. They're small, but I've exceeded the part allotment, so let me actually take off 2 thermostats. And I should be good that way. Let's save this and launch, because I know this thing can fly now. which actually surprised me. Anyway, SAS on, throttle to maximum, and let's go. Alright, and we're away. Actually, I think I'm actually within range, so if I take the crew report, yeah, I get it at Dolphin's Pride. Doesn't net me any signs because I've done it before in this general area, but it still counts. So the temperature readings out at Kerbin's Luck. And now I can apparently see where Kerbin's Luck is. So if I waddle the aircraft up far enough, I can eventually get to Kerbin's Luck. Temperature reading near Kerbin's Luck, and then everything else is pressure. So these all are 3 group sites, and this one's a singleton site. These are just need pressure readings. These are need pressure readings below a certain flight altitude. 18,000. I'm not even certain this thing has a flight ceiling of 18,000. That's how little I think it actually is. Thing is, though, Kerbin's Luck is very far out. I actually need to be above 18,000 for this one. What? Yeah, I need to be above 18,000. So I basically need to be 10 times higher than what I currently am. And again, I'm not even certain I can actually get that high. But we'll find out. Yeah, no, I can't get 18,000. Not with these small little engines. It looks like ceiling is about 3,000. So, temperature ones, I'm going to need a better aircraft parts for, or more engines, or... I mean, technically stated, I just have to be above 18,000 meters. 18,000 meters. Didn't say I had to be in atmosphere. There was no ceiling. Come on, stop. 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 Thank you. Just stop rolling. I'll get to, yeah, so area and the area NFZ, these ones down here, I need to be below the 18,000 mark. So, you know, again, this thing has a ceiling of about 3 kilometers, so I should be good there. I just need to take forever and a day to actually get there. So if I hit warp times 4, it should get me there faster. Oops. Of course, if I'm not paying attention, I can end up crashing the aircraft because I overcompensate. Alright, so for some reason, one gas tank is actually running low relatively faster than the other two. I could have sworn they were all tied in, but I might need fuel lines, which I don't actually have access to. But if it's these side engines that are running out of fuel, makes absolutely no sense because it's just a weird glitch thingy going on, I guess. I was going to say, if they're not tied, then the smaller side tank should be running out faster than the main tank because the main tank has the entire fuel slide to burn. Am I actually here yet? No? No, I wasn't paying attention. Log pressure. Alright, so that's there. So I then need to hit site ZKJZ. Wherever that is. Off this way, I think. There it is. Come on. Stop. Trying to crash. Alright, I'm entering the site, so let's take a pressure data here. Keep that as well. And for the third one, that is off, well, more this way. Off in this direction. So I am traveling to the right one. The arc's tripping me up because I think that's the direction of travel. If I go this way, I'm actually heading this way. So I am heading in the right direction. Yeah, I thought ceiling for this thing was 3 kilometers. Traveling higher than that, but yes, maybe when I manage to keep this thing level. And I'm now entering the correct sector, so let's take another log pressure data. Keep that. Now these pressure datas aren't actually, these pressure logs aren't actually netting me science because I guess I already did that. So I'm not going to get any extra science points for doing this, but it will complete the various contracts that I have, which means well, more coin, technically. Gonna have balls that way. Let's head back to the KSC. Now we've got a long ways to go, so let's not point down. I mean, I can see it over there, but it is that far away. Distance is rather deceptive. Alright, so I can definitely see the thing. Let's actually decrease the thrust slightly. because I have practically no control over anything. We point up slowly so that way decrease thrust. Well, decreased speed, I should say. Try to get it to turn. Direction I want. I know I'm not going to hit the runway. I'm not planning on hitting the runway. What I am planning on doing is cutting thrust completely, pitching up, trying not to hit the tracking station or anything else, and then deploying the chutes, which not only flip the aircraft, but slow it down to the point where I can just basically make a vertical landing. And I will actually land on top of the tracking center. Blowing up the engines and the landing gear, but you know what? The science data is still intact, the cockpit's still intact. I'm going to declare that a success. And we landed at KSC. I mean, that's the tracking center out there. They can literally just walk out and go, what the heck are you doing? And we recover the vessel. And we're good. Alright, so I get a whole bunch of crew reports, but again, because I guess I already took the pressure and crew reports from while flying this close to the ground, I don't generate any extra science. The temperature and barometers don't generate much science to begin with, and they fall out relatively, and the amount that they generate cuts down relatively quickly, but the plane works for the most part. Better than any other craft that I've had, but you know, if I need to build better and bigger aircraft, I'm going to need to be able to have more parts for them. So what we can do is upgrade for 225,000, which gives me basic action groups, and I can build aircraft up to 255 parts. And I have just shy of 450,000. So let me spend money to do that, and that actually gets me more parts, but the mass and the length and the width and the height stay the same, because while the parts are governed by the construction facility, this is also true for the vehicle assembly bay, the tonnage and the dimensions are governed by the launching device. For the launch pad for stuff built from the vehicle assembly bay, or the runway built by the spaceplane hangar. And I didn't upgrade the runway yet, but that's only 75,000. And it'll update from a vessel of 20 meters by 15 by 15 meters and weighing 18 tons to 36 by 28 by 28 meters, or 36 meters by 28 meters by 28 meters, and a maximum vessel weight of 140 tons. Also, it paves the runway, so there's that. Alright, so that's definitely fun, but that took a while. In fact, it took the entire video. So as much as I had wanted to get out up into orbit and, you know, build something that could possibly get out to orbit, what is that? Unidentified craft debris. Oh, untitled spacecraft debris. So apparently something that I just sent off my spacecraft is still floating in the ocean. That's funny. Can I actually... What's that say? Splashdown at Kerbal. What are you? I know I said this is the end of the video, but I'm just curious. Oh! It's the, wings. The ailerons. I think possibly from the, a couple of the winglets from either the, main part when I did the, VIP itinerary tour thing, or they're from the solid fuel boosters, but if it's from a booster, it should only be two, and I don't think the two boosters land in the same area. If they did, I would expect all of them to, in which case there probably should have been more wings. So I'm guessing this is off the main gas tank fuselage area, which means that they all snapped off all at once. So let's actually recover these, just for fun. I don't know if it's going to have me recover one each, because since they're no longer attached, they're considered their own separate thing. Debris is still technically out there, so let's hit the tracking station. I'm curious. Relays, planes, bases, stations to the landers. Here we are, debris. So there's actually 4 chunks of spacecraft debris. So these are the other 3 wings. I'll just recover those. Apparently, I can't recover what this final piece is, nor can I take control of it just to see what it is. But apparently, whatever it is, it's right at the Kerbal Space Center. So it might actually be something that popped off the aircraft. Interesting. I landed right at the tracking station, but I'm not seeing any icon for it, so who knows? Oh, there it is over there. So what are you? You are part of a nose parachute. Interesting. When did that pop off? I don't remember. Let's recover it anyway. Because if this is anything like the Xbox version, keeping debris out and about in Kerbal slows everything down. Much as I enjoy having the detritus just lie about all over the place, because such is one of the costs of using and maintaining and operating an active space program. I mean, I don't even want to know how much junk NASA has left in orbit, not counting the unused satellites that are no longer operating, but yeah, stuff is up there still. But as I was saying, wanted to go to orbit, didn't get to orbit yet, and so that's a plan for not right now. And I can take more jobs where I can ferry another VIP to safety, test more pieces of equipment flying over Kerbal. I even apparently can now test the Thud liquid fuel engine landed at the Mun. I can't even get to orbit. What makes you think I'm going to be able to get to the Mun? So I have more tasks to get me more money to upgrade more facilities and buy better equipment and launch stuff. I also need to generate more science to unlock better equipment, which allows me to do better and shinier and newer and better things. They said better twice because it's better, and better is always better with more, and that's not exactly true. But I'm rambling when I should be ending, and as such, orbit. Try next time. Save it for later. And as such, I'm going to have to call it here.
Everybody stay safe from the plague, and have a good day.